But welcome. Help yourself to the drinks. then they should be here.
This is maybe a weird question, but I have a few, spoiler alert, Star Wars references or images in my presentation. You don't think YouTube is gonna block or something, right? Because it's just for educational purposes.
Yeah, I think that should be fine.
Okay, good.
How smart is YouTube at that stuff? How algorithmic are they? I'm asking probably Xavier because he knows stuff.
Well, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out. If the whole stream gets blocked, you'll know.
It was my
here. It's mostly if it's like video or music or whatever.
Audio particularly, I think they don't like.
Yeah, I think if it's just a screenshot, I don't think anyone cares.
Yeah. Which takes me to code of conduct. As long as it's not racist or sexist or horrible to anyone, then we're fine with it. If it is, I will cut your stream. Yay. This is our code of conduct. I mean, we're here to learn about CSS. We're not here to get harassed or picked up or anything other than learning about CSS. The short version is please be nice to each other, but if you're not willing to do so, then please go somewhere else because this is not for you. Should I put this in more words than that? Am I clear enough? If something does happen to you, please contact Ed or myself. We will do our very best to help you out. We've been fortunate not to have any incidents so far, but I'm aware that not everyone is nice, which is not good. So, if you want the full version of the code of conduct, go to Melbourne CSS on GitHub and you'll find stuff. But otherwise, please be nice to each other. This whole thing is being shadily live captioned by this machine thing called Web Captioner. So I assume every second word I say comes out strangely in the captions. But, accessibility, and it's free and awesome. Technically, we're sponsored by Iris. This is my work Zoom account, so I guess that counts. If we were in a physical sense, then we'd be in the Iris office right now, and one magical day when we're allowed to do that again, then we will once more. So thank you, the company that I work for such things. Normally would be sponsored by Culture Amp as well in the physical space. They've been doing or sponsoring video recordings for a few meetups. So they're not doing anything for us right now, but they would be normally, and I really appreciate that. So thank you, Culture Amp. We have a Slack group, which was basically set up by me to ask stupid questions to things that I should know better, and generally talk about, well, not much, to be honest, but if we did have things to say, we'd have things to say there. So if you'd like to join yet another Slack channel because there aren't enough in your life, then come along and join Flat White. HTML element of the month, which I've actually kind of almost prepared. Almost, yes. Almost. Our element of the month is the dialogue. Now, dialogue is one of those things that everyone seems to make one of their own of because it's a dialogue. Like, doesn't even work in Safari here. Awesome. Actually, no, that's the dialogue there, isn't it? Have I got that to open? Oh, I need to open it. That's right. You can actually change it based on, and it's not enabled in Safari. Let me get another browser. So you can use properties to open or show it. Let's go with Chrome Canary. You can also, there's a DOM model for it as well. So let's see if this is going to work. No. Hey, there we go. So you can see my dialog is now shown. So if I skip through the CSS bits, the fun bit is this new pseudo selector, which is backdrop. Now, backdrop actually adds a backdrop to something. But the stupid thing is the only way to enable backdrop is if you use JavaScript to show the dialogue. So if you do what I just did then, you get nothing. Yay. So if I now hide that again, wait for repaint, and I'll just uncomment this JavaScript. So this is programmatically inducing the thing. You'll see that there's an actual backdrop on there. So this alone is pretty good. Unfortunately, browser support, as you've seen, is pretty poor. There is a polyfill for it. The backdrop CSS, like the pseudo selector, is pretty new. Only works in, actually I have a feeling it works in Safari, but not in Firefox, even though Safari doesn't support the dialogue. Yeah, so this is not quite ready for any real production anything, but hopefully it will get there because it has potential. And it has a pretty decent API on it as well. And I think if I hit escape, look at that, it disappears. Awesome. So that is our HTML element of the month. Our CSS color of the month, which you'll all be surprised to see, is chocolate. There are hundreds of named CSS colors, and I strongly recommend, oh, hang on, I've gone too far. I strongly recommend you do not use them because, you should just use the hex. However, if you're just looking for a color because you feel like it, how about choosing chocolate? Yay, chocolate. We all love strange, pale-looking chocolate. Okay, our first speaker tonight is Melissa, who's going to talk accessibility. So I'm going to stop sharing.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to share my screen now.
You should be able to
share.
Awesome.
And this instructs me %. So you all see my screen?
I've got you very happily here.
Yes?
Go for it.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yes.
Yeah, good. So yeah, this is a presentation that I want to share that is to talk about the accessibility and ideas around the accessibility initiative that the front-end team of PlageQ, which is where I work, I'm a front-end developer. We are doing this as an effort of the front-end team to improve the accessibility for our applications. So as a front-end developer, I've been working in Melbourne for a few years, and at the beginning, I really didn't know much about accessibility, and I thought it was purely technical thing, just like, oh, maybe put like a dialogue or code. But actually, over the years, you kind of learn and realize that it's just more than just a code thing. It's like an ethical practice, a thing that can make you better as a developer and can even make you motivated to keep working in the industry because you find purpose. At least that is what happened to me. So yeah, I would like to start with a phrase that I really like. Accessibility is essential for people with disabilities and useful for everyone. Another phrase that I really, really like, which is the power of the web is in its universality. So access by everyone, regardless of disability, is an essential aspect. So I really like this phrase because it's very simple and it tells it all. Like the web is universal. That's it. So, but what is web accessibility? So in this presentation, I'm going to talk about a little kind of concepts that are intro, just to understand it more. To start first. So accessibility means that websites, tools, and technologies are designed and developed so that people with any disability can use them. It is a human right declared by the United Nations. Accessibility makes sure that people can perceive, understand, navigate, and interact with the web, and people that can contribute to the web, which is very important. Accessibility is built on 4 principles, POUR, POUR. So these are some key concepts that help me to remember them. So perceivable. The user can identify content and interface elements by the means of the sense. Operable. Operability means that a user can successfully use interactive elements. Understandable. Users should be able to comprehend the content and learn and remember how to use the interface. And robust. Users should be able to choose the technology they want to use to interact with the websites. So now I want you to think on the person you love the most. So whoever that you want to be happy and not feel excluded from your community or the society. So keep that person in your mind for a minute. So web accessibility lets people with disabilities to access the web. So maybe that person that you love is Alex with repetitive stress injury using the forms you coded last week. Or maybe it's Mario, who is mute, trying to reach for help to a customer service via the text, not phone. Or maybe it's Anna, a parent that is blind and needs to sign up their kids using a screen reader on the web that you coded with a lot of love and coffee. Or maybe it's Anushka, who has dyslexia and trying to read the latest update about the COVID-19 on that landing page that you designed. Or maybe it's Sarah, who has a hearing impairment, trying to watch a video that the content team didn't have time to add the subtitles. So maybe you don't know anyone with disabilities, and that's okay. But now think on another person that you love that might be having a difficult time adjusting to a situational or temporary disability. So, for example, web accessibility also benefits people without the disabilities. So that person that you care, maybe is Andrew, doing some repetitive tasks using the keyboard. Or maybe it's Mary, with a broken arm, having to cancel as an attendee to a conference in your website. Or maybe it's you, using a mask in a public space, trying to call a customer support. Maybe a chat feature could be useful. Kaya, a traveler, trying to buy a ticket for a festival at home using a slow internet connection. Or maybe just simply bad news, your dog ate your mouse and you need a temporary way to navigate the web. So the mission, to not exclude people from using our services and products. And here are some ideas. So front-end applications are the entry point for our systems. And we want to minimize the barriers for our users, or even better, remove those barriers. The digital world is supposed to help the users to access the content, not block them. To blockers, we have the world, the physical world. Accessibility is better in incremental improvements, starting with low effort, high impact tasks. So prioritizing is key. Being pragmatic developer or designer. So accessibility should not be a blocker to cheap it. It is not going to be perfect and it will take time, love, and coffee. And accessibility in mind as a concept is not just a one-time ticket to fix all the problems your website may have. It is just an inclusive way of thinking about our work. And we want to reach more users. Our applications are for all the people. To discriminate is just not cool. So awareness together as a community. This is what we are doing just now. So what can we do to help each other to build a more accessible web? Simple things that get informed. Learning that not everyone uses the web the same as we do. 1 billion people worldwide have disabilities. And the classic is like start accessibility from the design process. talk to your designer coworker how we can start from there instead of just finding out in the implementation. Cheap accessible code on the go. Leave it better than you found it. So instead of trying to fix everything in like one giant epic, just choose your battles. Do one thing at a time on the go. Another idea is that you can report accessibility issues as a tech dev if you need. Another thing is expand your language. For example, click or view the content is not the only way. So think about keyboard and assisted technology users, for example, screen reader. They can hit with enter key or listen the content. And keep the accessibility collaboration between teams. It's okay if you are the only one interested in your company about accessibility, but it's a really good idea to get more people involved so you are not the only one. So these are 3 easy wins in the code that we maybe all are aware, but maybe some people not. So I wanted to share, and these are the 3 things that I've seen too many times in different projects. And over the year, like 5 years ago, and this year, still I see the same and very basics. So for example, do not remove the focus on interactive elements. It helps the keyboard navigation. And if you remove the focus, make a consistent new one. So put it back in a consistent way. Maybe you don't like the default focus that the browser adds to your elements, but make a cool one, but do it. So just doing outline none is just like dark side. Don't do that. Write Semantic HTML because it has built-in accessibility for assisted technology. For example, this is not good. You're trying to do a button, but using a tag, it's gonna work. You're gonna have your own click, but and if you read it, if you use a screen reader, it will be announced as button because you put that there, but it's not gonna be focused by default. So in that case, instead of doing too many things, just use a button because what you want is a button. So just use it. Another one is the classic that associate your labels with your form controls always. So for example, you have this awesome label, I love you, and then you have your checkbox with an ID, I know. But between those 2 elements, you don't have anything that makes the relationship that this label belongs to this. But in the user interface, this will look like they are absolutely together. But assisted technology don't know how to put them together. So to avoid that, as simple as doing the for attribute in the label with the proper ID of your checkbox. I love you, I know. Super simple. So here are some free resources to make your code more accessible. Here are my top 3. The first page is this page, the WAI area authoring practices. At the start, it kind of feels a bit overwhelming. It's like a lot of information, but then as soon as you start getting used to the way that they present the content, you start picking up the ideas and all the advice they want to share, and you start understanding more. So I would recommend spend time in this page, and then because this is kind of from the W3C authors. This is another one that I really, really like, which is Hayden Pickering. He's an author of books, and he shares a lot of content online about accessibility. And the site is called inclusive-component.design. And this is really good because it's a more informal way of talking about accessibility, but with like awesome tips and very, very technical as well. It's just not blah, blah. And this one is a free course with videos and interactive exercises developed by Google in the Udacity.com platform. And this course is called Developing with Empathy. And I find that it gave me like a lot of the structure to understand accessibility from the very, very basic topics to more advanced things. And I highly recommend. So I started with these 3, and then you can spend a lot of time in just 2, 3, but yeah, feel free to to use all the resources that you think may be helpful. And these are the links of the 3 resources that I shared with you. There are many more, but these are my top 3. So remember, every effort, small or big, will help. It doesn't have to be, let's have like a awesome score. No. Anything you can do will help in a consistent basis. Thank you. And if you want to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter or in my blog. I have like 3, to be honest. I have like 4 draft posts that I need to finish. But my last post that I will publish as a complement to this talk is a post that is related to accessibility in a kind of fun way. So I show, for example, some do's and don'ts using like a Millennium Falcon dashboard UI. So we're going to build an accessible Millennium Falcon with code. And yeah, it's just to make it more fun. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Thank you, Melissa. A round of applause you'd normally get, but everyone's on mute. So
thanks for the chance to share this.
Just assume universal love from everyone. How have you found the ARIA guides, the W3C resource? I ask because I find them really difficult.
Difficult?
Yeah, I mean, from when I've looked at them, how have you found working with them? I mean, what's your impression? Maybe I'm not very good at this.
No, it is true. I feel it is a bit overwhelming, like a lot of information and like do this, do that. But I feel like I don't take it like absolutely this is the only answer, but it's kind of like a direction. Like, for example, what I really, really like about that authoring practices website is that it has what kind of nice specs on what expect on a widget. If you do a custom widget, these are the keyboard events that you should put back in your custom widget to make it top-notch. Like below that, you are not accessible. You are maybe doing like, So not necessarily that I follow every code example they do, but the spec are good in my opinion, are like the kind of way to go. But that's why it's good to have other blogs of people that talk about it, like the Css Houdini. I think she's very good at making it more friendly. Hayden Pickering, I really like. Yeah, we can maybe share our resources on the Twitter maybe or whatever, but it's good to have...
if you tweet Melbourne CSS or Mel CSS, whatever we are.
But I think whoever you find online that you like the way they talk about accessibility, I think that's kind of a nice way to follow them and just get motivated about the topic instead of feeling overwhelmed, like, oh my God, I have to like do like 10,000 things. No, just do one little thing at a time.
Did anyone else have any questions? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask things.
For me, it's mostly like a comment, more like a question. I found also very helpful the links that Mel shared, especially the W3C specs because, for example, I've seen a lot of React UI kits out there saying that, oh, we are accessible, and then when you compare the components they share in those libraries, they are not really accessible all the time. So it's good sometimes if someone wants to contribute to open source and make like for example, fix a checkbox that is not accessible, you can put the W3C resources with the spec as your source of truth in a way, or as your like you base your fix on what they say because they are official. So that's, for me, it's very helpful. I've been contributing in a React UI kit that with W3C contents, especially the Web Accessibility Initiative, I was able to say, yeah, I fixed that following this spec. So yeah, I'm happy that you shared that in this talk, Mel.
Yeah, and from there maybe you can destroy everything. So, but at least you have the official base to start the conversation, and then you can start the debate. But you're starting on a kind of universal standard sort of thing.
How have you found comparing the spec and the reality of different accessibility browsers and things like if you start testing on different things like Safari VoiceOver, it can be sketchy at times, I've found. What's your experience?
Wing it. Just if it works in a couple of browsers and you didn't have time to test in all, that's better than nothing. So yeah, I'm not too like worried about like, oh my God, it's not working in here, but it's there. It's like, okay, I'll get there. But it is true that sometimes you are trying to run your screen reader in some browsers, and in some others it's doing something completely different. And yeah, it's tough. It's true.
All right. Is there anyone else who's got a question? I asked that question because I've seen how hard it is.
Yeah, no, I don't worry too much about it. That's my answer.
No, I mean, for myself, making the effort and putting in as much effort as you possibly can is better than not. And it's a whole lot better than just labeling something as, oh, this is accessible because I've read what ARIA stands for, as opposed to actually trying. Yeah, I mean, putting in every bit of effort as you can, because as you showed, there are so many real people out there who need this support. And the more effort we put into it and the more normal we make it, then the better our products are and the happier people are. I think the best thing to convince people is find videos of user tests where people start crying because something doesn't work. And if they can watch that and say, nah, we don't need accessibility, then they're welcome to go with it with their horrible cold hearts.
And that's the thing, that if you just think that person trying to access to your website and not being able to perform flow is someone on your family, like your daughters, your kids, your grandparents, like someone close to your heart, I don't think we want them to feel like not able to be to be a user, to actually use the product or feel independent. I don't think anyone would like that to happen to our close family, right, or friends. So it's kind of a bit of putting that mindset. That's why I put some ones there to like remember, like, hey, think about someone you love first. And yes, we're developers. Sometimes the schedules, time frames are really hard, but that's why don't go like maybe full on. Just start small things. Yeah, and then as soon as you find time, you just do a bit more. So yeah.
One of the analogies I stick to is, imagine if you're running a shop and the door sticks for 2 out of 10 customers, and you think, we don't really care. We could fix it, but the door just doesn't work all the time. I couldn't imagine that happening. It's one of our challenges that our audience is largely invisible to us. So that's why talks like yours reminds us of what we're actually doing here. So that was fantastic. Thank you very much, Melissa. Rihanna, are you ready to go?
Yep, all good.
You may share your screen.
Right. Oh, if it lets me. Let's see if that works. I've got to allow Zoom to share screens. I just updated. Okay, it's asked me to quit, so I'm going to drop out and come back in a second. I just upgraded my Mac OS, and it's just, it's doing this. Been doing this all day.
We'll put the hold music on.
All right, put the hold music on. I'll be back in 2 seconds. Thanks.
Or maybe Ed can play some guitar.
What Rihanna doesn't know, and everyone else is about to find out, is there's no hold music. So, no. we should have had our filler things for now. I didn't introduce the element of the month actually before. The HTML element of the month is there because not many people seem to know the HTML elements very well, and ourselves included. So we added it as a regular thing, just to pick a random HTML element that may be useful, maybe not, but explain what on earth the thing is. And some of them are fantastic that people don't use, but other ones are terrible. But it helps them know that they exist. Oh, welcome, Rihanna.
I made it.
Yay.
Yay, hooray. You can't defeat me, macOS. Unless I forget how to... Fine. All right, so today I'm going to be talking about CSS Houdini. It's kind of something that doesn't get talked about much. I've seen a few kind of conference talks and bits and pieces, but generally they make me more confused than anything else. So I decided to kind of dig a bit deeper and actually kind of figure out what it was. And then eventually it started to sink in. And so I thought now I would share my knowledge of my hours and hours of banging my head against the wall with you people, so that maybe you can go away and hopefully be able to do some CSS Houdini yourself one day. So let's have a bit of a look. So first of all, what is it? If you haven't heard of it before, it's kind of it's a collection of APIs that are kind of related, but they're kind of not. You can kind of treat them separately if you like. But basically, they kind of open up to how the web page will render your CSS. And so you can see how it's like currently doing it with CSS properties, and you can then make your own CSS kind of property value pairs there, which is really cool. So you can make really neat stuff. I can show you some neat things that people who have spent more time on it than me have made, and I'll show you the kind of things that I've been able to cobble together. But yeah, so the object of it was to jointly develop features that explain the magic. So yeah, the name was just because Houdini and magic. That was all I was able to piece together there. All right, so one of the APIs, this is the main one I'm going to talk today, is the Paint API for Houdini. The way I think of it is just like MS Paint. Basically anything that you could do on this, if you're old enough to remember MS Paint, you can do with the CSS Paint API. So, like drawing lines, filling in colors, having borders, paint, just kind of putting things everywhere and filling them with random colors. That's the kind of things that you can do with the Paint API onto like whatever element you're styling. So it gives you a lot of freedom and a lot of cool things that you can make. So yeah, pros and cons. There's a lot of good things about CSS Houdini, which is why it's kind of being developed and why it's being made and why it's under consider with the W3C. It's quite fast. The code that you make, it's JavaScript code that renders the CSS. It's really deliberate. Every line of code that you're writing is doing something like really specific, like draw this here, make this green, do this here. It's really, really descriptive code with a lot of control around it, so that, you know, eventually once you get your head around it, you can read it and you know exactly what it's doing. There's not going to be any kind of surprises that come up. And it does let you do things that before weren't really possible, which is really cool. The cons were, it was really hard to find learning resources for. There's not much written down about this, so it is really hard to get started. So I'm hoping to kind of reach that a little bit today. And there's not very much browser support. It has gotten a lot better. I remember a few years ago it was about 4% of browsers, and now it's kind of more like 40%, which is really good. It's getting there. So anything that's based on Chrome can do it, because I think it's being developed by Chrome, so I should check that out. So Chrome, now the new Edge, can do CSS Houdini, which is really cool. Opera, for anyone who uses Opera. Firefox and Safari, no, though they can't really do anything with Houdini yet. So just put those on the side. All right, so an example. So say your very talented designer has come up with this great button that, has come up with this great new button. So all the buttons on the website used to have border radiuses, but they're like, nah, border radiuses are out. They're the last decade. We want new things. We want sharp edges. It's going to be very cool. It's going to be very edgy. Thankfully, the design is really cool, and they don't care about browser support as long as they fall back nicely. All good. Said no designer ever, but we'll pretend for a minute that this is true. All right. So just having a look at this button with the cornered edges. How would we do this? There's nothing native in CSS that you can put, all right, I want border radius, but I want it to be flat. There's nothing really native there. So you can, well, that I know of, don't I? So the kind of things that you could do, I've seen people do kind of background images for things like buttons. I found that they're not very responsive. They're really hard to animate. And, you know, if you want to put extra text on them, you just kind of can't. You got extra downloads, extra assets, and if they don't load, then you've lost your button. The other way that I like is CSS Hacks, because I like CSS Hacks. However, they are a bit slow. They're hard to maintain. A CSS Hacks that I write today, I'm probably not going to remember in 6 months' time what it was doing or be able to alter it in any way. So this is the kind of CSS hacks that I was hacking around with at the start. This isn't the exact code, but for starters, I was trying to get doing some border pseudo triangle things at the borders. So I got some white triangles and I put them kind of on top. So I needed a lot of extra DOM elements, and they didn't really position well, and I had to make them a solid color. And so if it was on anything other than a white surface, it wasn't going to work. So that one didn't work very well. Recently, I found this thing called ClipPath, which it was just doing something similar to what I'm going to be doing in Houdini, but that was really fiddly, and I couldn't get it to work all the way. I think if you had a fixed width and height kind of thing, it wouldn't be too bad, or a square. But I'll show you later what this looks like. It didn't look great, and I couldn't quite figure out what was going on. I think there are probably some other hacks you could do with masking and things, but I couldn't really get them to work. There'd be a few ways that you can hack your way around it. Or why not use Houdini Paint API? Yay! So Houdini Paint API works on backgrounds and borders. So these are values that you can put on these parts of CSS. It looks just like this. So you have Paint because it's Paint API, and then in your borders you put whatever you've named your custom property value, just whatever you've named it, doesn't matter. But it works mainly on those two ones. I've done it on background. You might be able to do the same thing in border. I'm not quite sure, but today I've done it in background. Next part of the setup is you're making a JavaScript file, and then you add it to your HTML exactly like this. What it is, this is a JavaScript paint worklet. So this is a very small, very isolated piece of JavaScript. It doesn't have all of the other millions of things that JavaScript have. It doesn't have access to the whole DOM or anything. It just has access to your one little bit of code and to your one little bit of element. So you might find while it looks like JavaScript, there's not going to be, you might put something in there. It's like, well, isn't that working? It always works. It's because it's not a full JavaScript page. It's a little worklet. So it is a bit limited, but it does make it, I think it makes it a bit faster. So you just kind of add this into a script tag into your HTML. And then your JavaScript file will look something like this. So you register your paint. You put in whatever you want your paint property value thing to be. So like custom background can be whatever you like. This is a class. The class has a Git Input Properties. So this is a way that in your CSS, you can feed it bits and pieces. So for example, there's one I saw and it was like a tooltip, and you could feed in things like, where it was positioned and how big it was. So you can feed in different things that will then do your painting differently, and it will render it differently from the inputs that you're chucking at it, which I think is really cool. So that means that you can have like, well, if we have like our one button here that's blue, then we can have another button over there and we can chuck a different input at it to make it green. We can have another one over there, chuck purple at it or whatever. And you can, it makes it, quite flexible. So if you're not quite sure what this kind of input is, this is called a CSS variable. You might not have seen them because they don't work in IE, and so a lot of places won't let you use them. But this is a CSS variable. They're very cool. They work pretty much the same as Sass variables if you've used Sass. So basically anything with 2 dashes at the front, that's a CSS variable. So if they're on IE, they're not going to be seeing any of our Houdini stuff anyway. So feel free to use CSS variables here. So what I would do then is I'd wrap them around for progressive enhancement. So anything in the support background paint thingy that gets rendered with your Houdini stuff, and then you just put your fallback stuff outside it. So all your fallback code of how the button currently looks will live out there. All your new Houdini stuff will be in the supports, and then it's nice and separated. And you've got the 2 ones there. Yep. So then you just have to put your background, your paint, then your brackets and what it's called, and then any variables that you're going to put into it. Okay, so let's have a look at the next part. So the next part in the register paint class is a paint function, and this has 3 attributes that go into context, geometry, and properties. So I'll go through them one by one. But properties is the CSS variables that you're chucking at it. So this can be as many or as few or as many as you like. So you access them. So you can just put them into a variable in there. So properties, because it's properties.get, because it's .get, background color, background color. So you're just kind of grabbing it from there. The next 2 ones, there's geometry. So that's your width and your height. So that's how you can get the width and the height of your element out, and then you can kind of play around with those when you're drawing places, when you're drawing things. And then the first one is context. So the context one is the thing that has all the really cool paint stuff on it. So it has fill style. If you're going to fill the whole background color, I've got fill style there, background color, and .fill. And that just kind of, it's like the fill tool in Paint. It just fills your whole thing. I'll just open this one up so you can get an idea of it. But if you've done anything with canvases or anything with drawing tools or anything with JavaScript like that, this will look all pretty familiar. So it's things like you can set your line width, so how thick you want your lines. You can say, make a rectangle from here to here and fill it black. You can, draw a line from here to here to here to here. So you're drawing lines, you're filling things, you're making your borders this color, you're making your fills that color. And there are lots and lots of really cool bits and pieces that you can do with the context. So any of these things you can access by doing context.these, and then you can go for it and do really cool things. I've stuck with just a couple of kind of basic ones for now. So get headed around things, and also I haven't gotten to look at all the cool things yet. But basically anything in that one you can access through this context one. All right, demo time. This is my beautiful button that I designed because I get very angry that I can't do triangles in CSS at all times. So I've set this up in CodePen. All this has is an index HTML file. It has my CSS file and it has my JavaScript file. So there's nothing I had to install, nothing I had to download, no framework, nothing like that. This is just straight index HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That's all it is. You don't even need it to be Sass. I've got it as CSS, but you don't need it to be. It can just be straight CSS. So it's very core. You don't need a lot to get this working, which I was really surprised by when I finally got it to work. So in the index, I've just got a random button. I'm going to ignore these register properties for now. And then I've got my css.paint worklet.add module, and it's just adding this border quarters one, which is just here. Yeah, so that's just here. And then in my index one, so I've just got all my fallback ones. So if, for example, I open this up in Firefox where it doesn't work, it'll let me. But yeah, for example, if I open up this up in Firefox or Safari, we're going to see the nice, we should see the nice fallback where it just has the rounded corners, which it was before. And then if it's in a browser that supports it, we'll see the Houdini. So it has that nice, it has capabilities for nice fallback, which is always good. All right, so this is the Houdini part here. So as you see, it's not very much CSS code. I've just put the supports around it for the progressive enhancement. I put the background, I put paint border corners. I've called it border corners. It's fun to say. Then I just chucked a couple of variables at it. It's CSS variables. So one I put in background color. So you can put whatever background color you like in. You can also then animate that background color if you like. It's always fun. And then I put a corner size variable there. So you can make these ones as big or as small as you like. The other cool thing about this is that you can do it right from the view source as well. So you can, it's right there. You can see your background. You can see your corner size, especially if I zoom in a little bit. And you can just modify it from here. So I can make these lines bigger. I can make them smaller, and you can kind of see where it does. So it gives you, a lot of control over what you're doing, which I find, really helpful. If you make it too big, I haven't put any conditions to stop it from being too big, but you can make it like really big, and it can do some really funky things. Put that back to like 10. 20, cool. Yeah, so that's all the CSS. So I find that's pretty readable. I probably should have figured out how to put units on this, but one day I will. And then the border corners itself, it's exactly as I was going through. You've got the register paint at the top with your class. You put your Git Input Properties. So this is getting out the variables. And then your paint one here. So I'm getting the corner size one out. I'm getting the background color out. I put context fill style background color, so it actually puts that background color in. If you don't kind of have that in, if you don't pass it through a background color, I've put in a default one for it to do. And then I've got a function here, which is draw triangle corners, and then it fills it in. So here's my draw triangle corners. So this is all it is. There was probably a more simple way to do it. This is how I did it. And so I just got out the height and the width, and then I worked out the inset, which is just x and y minus it. And then it's just like having a pencil. So it's just here, and then it draws a line here, and then it draws a line here, then here, then here, then here, then here, then here, and then it closes it, and then it fills it green, and that's all it does. So it's very, very, so it's, while it looks like a lot, and it took a bit to get this right of thinking of my coordinate kind of planes, I don't find it's yeah, I find it's quite simple to follow. Like if I got rid of one of these lines, you kind of see it, oh, instead of going there first, it just went like straight down sort of thing. So I find that it's really, really responsive. You can see exactly kind of what it's doing, which is quite cool. Yeah, and you can kind of see what it would be doing by default. So by default, your background color would just be doing this one, which is just context.rectangle. Draw it, find the width and height and fill it, and that's all it's doing normally. And so in this one, it's just instead of filling it the whole way, we're just drawing a container and putting it in. So what I did after this, if we've got time and people want to see it, was I found a way to add another. I found a way to add another. I wanted to add another variable in it for the shape of the corners. So to have triangle, and then I wanted another one where it was a square. So for example, if they wanted the button to have like these two different styles, so you can do that with this as well. So if we have a look over here, this is another part of Houdini. I didn't really talk about it, but this is one with register properties. Basically, this is just a fancy way to declare your CSS variables and give them things like default values. So that's all I've done here. So my corner size, I've given a default value of 0, and I've said it has to be a number. For my background color, I said it had to be color, and I gave it a black as the default. So I'm going to register a new one, which is corner shape. So this is one that we can just plug in. I've given it the syntax of star, which just means anything. I found this was a way to kind of get strings and stuff in there because there wasn't a string type, which I was a bit annoyed by. So corner shape goes in there, and then you can have your corner shape just over here. So you could have your corner shape equals triangle, for example. It doesn't know what to do with that yet, obviously. So then we take our corner shape over to our border corners. We add it up here to our input properties. So then we can access it down here. And we can access it exactly the same as we did our background color. So we go corner shape. Oops. Corner shape. So corner shape equals properties, get corner shape. I put trim there because I had a white space issue for a bit that stumped me for longer than it should have stumped me. And then if we like, you can just chuck console logs in here. This is how I do most of my JavaScript programming. You can just chuck a console log in there. And then if you have a look in your console, you can see here that it's come up with triangle. So that means it's got your corner shape in there, it's figured it out, and now we have access it in the paint, in your paint function. And now you can do stuff with it. So, for example, we can put if corner shape is equal to triangle, draw it as a triangle. Otherwise, have a backup, and we'll just draw it as a normal rectangle. So that should work. I did it slightly differently the other day, but we'll see if that works. Yep, so it's coming up as a triangle as we'd expect, but if I just kind of put in garbage kind of things there, it should just fall back to a nice rectangle there. Yeah, so then from here, if we'd like, we can put the corner shape to something else here on hover and focus. I put the background color as purple, so on hover and shape, I can put it as my square, which isn't set up yet, but then you can go on hover and so it will change shape on hover. And then, yeah, we can set up some square corners. So I did this as a switch statement, but it doesn't really. How do we do else ifs in JavaScript? I can't remember, but I'm sure it will yell at me later. Yeah, and then if it equals a square, you can do something else. I'm sure it's going to yell at me. Yeah, how do I do else ifs? It's probably that one, I think. No, it's yelled at me. I can't remember how to JavaScript.
This is Melbourne CSS, so any knowledge of JavaScript is coincidental.
Yeah, very much so. I'm supposed to write in JavaScript. Yeah.
Yeah, just else space if.
Yeah. Okay, I had it right. I write in like.
We probably should have actually helped.
Yeah, I switch a lot at work. Oh, there we go. So you can see how many times it fires, which is always fun. Yeah, so now it's actually doing something when we go on hover. It's not doing anything, but you can put in, a new draw function. I've got one I prepared earlier because I wasn't sure if we're going to get time to draw it, but I got one here for drawing square corners. So I'll just chuck this in. It's basically the same one, but I added in a few extra kind of stops on the way, so it stops in the middle. And then instead of doing draw triangles, I'll have it draw squares. Square corners, yeah. Square. Square triangle, square triangle, square triangle. Yeah, so it renders a lot all the time, which is really cool. So if for example, I wanted to put my padding to 150 pixels for some reason, it still renders nicely and it still renders everything correctly, which is quite nice. And if you had it, or if I wanted to put kind of the height to, I don't know, 20% or something, yeah, it finds a way to render it. So I'm not sure if I'll be able to do that one, but yeah, it finds a way to render it. It figures out how to make it responsive, and every time you're changing your window, every time the element size is changing, it's redrawing, it's figuring out where to draw those lines. It's all dynamic and it's all responsive, and it will figure out how to do it. All right. Yeah, so thanks for that. I hope you're able to kind of see kind of how simple it is to set up. I've got my links there to my slides. If you want to check it out, I can also put up my links to this one if you just want to see how it's set up, because it is a little bit fiddly to get things in the right spot. But then after that, you're pretty well good to go, which, yeah, I found surprising just how simple it was to set up in the end. I'm going to be doing this talk. I'm going to plug a conference because it's a GIDP web conference. They're in October, so I'm going to be doing this talk, but hopefully a little bit more polished then. I think it's like $100 and it's like a 12-hour conference, so I think it's pretty good. Seems pretty good value for money to me. Yep, a couple of resources here. So this is one I talked about. Is Houdini ready yet? This is a really good one. I check it quite frequently to see if it's ready yet. Kind of, but it also has like really good articles and demos and explainers, and it's got all the W3C spec and stuff of all the things that they're implementing, all the different APIs. So I mainly talked about the Paint API, which is this one, which is one of the better ones. And I also had a bit of properties and values in there, which is quite cool. A lot of other ones haven't really kind of started yet. So that's quite a cool one. Then there's another couple of cool libraries here as well, where people have made just some really cool things where they've got different inputs and you can change. So this is just changing your CSS variable numbers, and it's doing random bits and pieces and all the codes on there if you dig hard enough. as well. Yeah, oh, I broke that one. Just leave this page alone. This one's quite good as well. It's got a lot of really cool, this one's my favorite because it's a tooltip and I have to do them all the time. But you can be like, ooh. And I reckon you could do some cool things like putting in a variable to say which position, like top, left, or right, and get it working there. And that's one of my goals to get that to work. Yeah, so these are a lot of fun to play with, and yeah, it can give you a good idea of what kind of things you can do, and yeah, just how little CSS code it ends up being and how well you can kind of read it. It's like paint, tooltip, image width, border width. Yeah, border width is this, tooltip position this, tooltip size this. It's all like really explicitly written down, which I quite like. Thanks.
Yay, Kikaro's round of applause again. This is the worst thing I find about talking to a Zoom audience is you've got no back at all.
Yep.
Never say anything you think might be funny because who knows?
It's just a dead room. Just
yeah.
Oh yeah, I had lots of jokes I took out because I'm very funny.
You'd be laughing silently. No.
Yeah.
I'm impressed that Safari is actually building stuff, and that people know that Safari are building things. That's probably more difficult than knowing that Safari is actually doing something.
It's getting there. Look at it.
I see that as very promising.
Yeah, I think this one is intent to implement. I don't know if Mozilla's making like a new kind of thing, and it's going to be in the new Firefox, whatever thing they're doing in Rust, but see how that goes.
How tricky is it to animate between states, like between your square corners and triangles, for example?
Yeah, I've got to figure that one out. The rule of thumb with CSS animation, because you can just use the transitions as I did, and I haven't got it working yet, is that if there's numbers that it can go between, then it can animate smoothly. Because I've just got triangle and square, it has no idea what to do with that. So one thing that my husband suggested, it's about to come in, obviously tell me, it's one of my kids, is that if I made it into a numerical value, if I made it, instead of square and triangle, I made it into angle, and I made it into like angle 45 degrees versus angle 90 degrees, and kind of did it that way, then it could figure out all the different steps in between like 0 and 90, and then it can animate between those pretty freely. But I don't know how hard that's going to be because I haven't done it yet.
I was hoping it would somehow magically work, but you're right. Like if there's no maths, then it's not going to happen.
Yeah, it needs to have the maths. That's what helps me to remember with CSS transition. It's like, is there any maths there? No, then it's not going to know what to do. Like,
I was really scared the first time you showed the script insert because it reminded me of the days of rounded corner scripts for IE. But fortunately, this is native, so that's good.
Yeah, it's all native. There's probably like shortcuts you can do here, and there's lots of really cool things to play around with in this one as well.
Awesome. Did anyone else have any questions?
You asked the exact question that I had.
How this looks on, for example, mobile? Have you opened the code?
Oh, it'd be fine on mobile. It's just this. It's the same as anything else. If you take, that's right, I broke that one. If you take this one here and we put it into like a mobile kind of screen, it's as responsive kind of as the rest of the pages. These pages are very responsive. But yeah, it's fine for mobile browsers.
Awesome. Was there anyone else who had a question? I can't do a show of hands because I've got no idea. I think that's everyone. Thank you again, Rihanna. That was fantastic. This is one of my favorite new CSS things because the possibilities are huge.
Yeah. I think especially when this layout API gets implemented, I think that's going to be very cool. That has like no support, so I haven't been able to do anything with that yet. And this typed on, I can't quite figure out how I want to use it yet, but that's where you can type your put CSS into types, because at the moment everything's a string and it's all regexes to render everything. And so if instead you want to go, okay, this is 10 pixels, so this is like a number and this is a unit instead of everything's a string. So I think you can get some really cool like error handling and things happening there. CSS kind of needs. One day.
We'll get there. We got grid, we can do anything.
I know.
Hello everyone. I'm Tej. Actually, I've got one question regarding animation. So one day, actually, I was making one website regarding one photographer. And so what he suggests me to do is, and I actually was trying to do it, but I haven't been able to do it, is like he said, there's a wallpaper and there's a camera between in them. So it's like, if like whenever the website is launched for the first time, or maybe like for a longer time, after a longer time, it should be like a flash. Like someone like how can I explain?
Okay.
Yeah, so like someone taken a photo or something of yours. So whenever a person opens a new website, it's like a flash, and it looks like you have opened a new website in front of you, and it's like a gesture of like it's a photography of photographer website. So something like related to it I was trying, but I wasn't able to do it. Is there anything like I can use it to do it? Any help?
I'll have a look on here, but as I said, it's not. I'm not sure if I'd put any of this stuff onto a real life website. You could probably do it with CSS keyframes. Would be what I would do that for. I'll see if I can find you any kind of examples.
It was good, Rihanna, when you went from, hey, I could just do this with polygons and things, to, oh, I might use Houdini.
It's a great segue. Yeah, no, I wanted to show that, like, give an accessible example. Yeah, so I'd probably do something like with a keyframe or something, because then you can say, just kind of do this once, show this thing once, and then stop forever.
Right.
That's the kind of CSS animations I'd be looking
it's
into.
Like we can show a blink or something of a website.
Yeah, well, you'd have like a div, and the div would be like, you know, a white, like a white square,
right. Yes,
with maybe like some opacity or something on it,
right.
And then you'd use a keyframe to like turn it on and then turn it off, and then not show ever again. So I'd investigate keyframes for that one. There might even be, there might even be some sort of generator out there. You probably could do it in Houdini, but the support's not going to be as good.
Okay, no problem. Thanks a lot, Rihanna.
Yeah, no worries. Just trying to see if ones are Houdini. Oh yeah, I like this one. See.
Oh, that's fancy.
Fancy. Yeah.
It's typical of any dev who's built something with animations, is we hit it about 1,000 times.
Yeah. Yeah, I go on this one a bit to have a look at the cool things here. Yeah.
Alrighty, if you want to unshare.
Yep. There's my unshare button.
It's always hidden somewhere. Now I've completely lost the Zoom screen. Oh, there you are. That one. Aha. Oh yes. We have a Buy Me a Coffee page, which is there for you to support us should you wish to. One magical day, oh hang on, going too fast. One magical day when we actually are able to meet in person again, we will have stickers, and I'll be throwing funds in towards t-shirts as well to subsidize them. But this is basically, if you feel like supporting us financially for whatever reason, then feel free to chip us $5 or something, and we'll throw it towards merchandise next time we're actually able to see each other again. I run another meetup, which has been championing change, which is devoted to gender equality, because there are too many men in this industry and we're the ones who need to do something about it. So if you care, and you do, because you should, then please join us and make a difference. I feel like I need to talk about this every time, even though, well, the audience is there always the right audience in the tech industry, surely. Web Directions code is gone remote this time around. And let's do my smooth transition. Oh, look at that. I've gone to the live site. What's happening this year, because we can't see each other in person, is the whole thing is run over 4 Fridays in September. Most of the sessions, if they haven't been recorded yet, then they will be soon. And you'll get something similar to this bit over here where you can watch the slides, you can watch the presenter, you can watch both. I think, Xavier, you probably know more about how this works than I do. Awesome. But rather than just streaming the whole thing and hoping for the best, like what we do here, the intent behind this is to have these as really polished. Now, I'm one of the speakers, so maybe not all of them will be polished, but we'll see how good the editor is. What else is there to say about code? Oh, yes, the important thing is we have a code. If you use the code Melbourne CSS, you get an extra 6 months of streaming access to all of the previous Web Directions talks, which is pretty amazing. And then you can, stream to your heart's content. I think it's current prices. Let's have a look at the site. How much are you? $200 at the moment until July 31st. If you are really genuinely on a budget, then you can go for the pay what you can. But that's only a few days. If like basically Friday, I think it goes up to $295. But for the budget, what you normally pay for a conference like this is at least 4 or 5 times that comfortably. So considering the effort that's been put in and the format, this is a fair bargain. So I would strongly encourage you to attend if that's your thing. Oh, hang on, I'm going too far. And use the Melbourne CSS code to get yourself some extra streaming access so you can watch videos forever. Normally, this is the bit where I'd be showing you the directions from the Iris office to Penny Blue, which is a bar around the corner. But don't go there. Stay at home, keep your mask on, and have a drink with yourself. So don't go to Penny Blue. I hope they survive. But does anyone else have any announcements? Any other conferences that we haven't talked about? If you're hiring people, anything interesting like that, now is your time to talk. And you're welcome to share the screen if you've got something fun to say. I'll take that silence as everyone is currently fine in their happy workplaces. Awesome. I've gone too far again. No. Melissa, I mentioned how lack of bad at professionalism we are. You could have been on the couch tonight. You may be on the couch tonight. You could have been watching a TV show that would have been more exciting, but instead you chose to join in on Melbourne CSS. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. I hope you got something valuable out of it. I'm pretty sure you would have if you paid even a little bit of attention. We'll be back in a couple of months, as is our way. As always, we're looking out for speakers. So if you do have something interesting to share related to, we're pretty broadly front end, to be honest. If it's got CSS in there, that's nice, but
HTML or CSS.
Yeah, HTML even. Do a HTML talk. We love them.
Yeah.
But something that's towards that kind of focus, because it doesn't get as much attention in other meetups. Like if you go to a JavaScript thing, they'll show you 3,000 lines of JavaScript and talk about each line. And that's exciting for some people, but not us, because we like CSS. So please do join us in a couple of months, volunteer to talk or recommend someone else, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Melissa
Thunderous
and
applause.
Rihanna.
Thanks a lot.
Oh yes,
for
thank you,
the-
speakers, Melissa, Rihanna.
Thanks a lot for the time. I had a good time. It was my first one, so I was like.
Well, the key thing to remember is if you don't speak, you get Ed or myself, and that's just the worst possible. So it's
And
much
I have
better.
it at work every day, so it's like, that's a lot.
Yeah, she hears me talk enough at work.
Yeah, so that's not recommended for anyone.
Okay.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.